reveling in it
Yeah,
despite
the
that.
experience. You see, the smoky. It's the smoky because it's
optics,
No,
otherworldly.
you're
but
That's the
you
whole
can't
point.
dismiss all optics. You just can't.
you're
I'm not
basically
dismissing all
taking
optics.
everything
Yeah.
I'm saying and you're discounting it because you think all I'm saying is Smoky Man bad, and that's not what I'm doing. I'm saying that there's an
It
appearance,
goes to that. You
where
just
he
care about the
seems
optics
to,
of the argument
No,
because that's the
he's
only
saying
thing
if
that you
you
can go
when
ahead.
people will criticize him, he
he's
seems to revel in
listen,
destroying them
I'll
or
put it in
discounting
terms.
them.
I'll put it in terms that are understandable. If the world outside of the church sees Andrew and other Orthodox as degenerate by their behavior, then they will think that the church is also degenerate. That's exactly what he's saying. In the
Yeah, but
terms
the
that you
problem
guys
is
can
what we
understand.
consider to be degenerate, and that's the point. It's like, hey, you're a guy. You can be a guy. It's not degenerate to be a guy. You can like guy things, and it's gonna be fine. And you guys are like, no,
No, I'm not
no,
taking a
the
side. I'm
smoky thing
literally
is bad.
no.
We can't do
You,
it. That's the whole
Emmett,
point.
Emmett, you know me better than that, buddy.
Yeah, I know. I am a straw man in your position right now. I agree with that. I'm taking it to an absurdity so that
The
I can try to
the point is that you see
demonstrate
it
more.
differently, and so what happens is because you're both seeing this thing differently, it's creating a schism between you. And you have to say, wait a minute, what am I not getting about this picture? If they're seeing us this way, why are they seeing us this way? And then the other side needs to go, wait, is what I'm seeing wrong? So there needs to be questioning on both sides of what am I seeing and why are they thinking that? So that you can solve that rather than just fight over it and keep saying, well, it's not wrong. And they're saying, well, it looks wrong. And you're saying, well, it's not wrong. That doesn't get you anywhere. Instead, you should say, look, this is why it's not wrong. And then you can say, okay, what other problems do you have so that we can actually move through it and there can be unity rather than an argument over how things look or how things feel
Well,
or how things
It
seem.
should be about
the
building
thing is that
bridges.
you look judgmental, which is the problem, and then I think that
I don't
the
disagree.
flow
I
is
don't disagree.
correct, and I think that every time, uh, especially when it comes to church, they've been losing because they just look very judgmental instead of actually trying to
Well,
work with the individual towards
there's an
salvation.
old saying: if it looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, sounds like a duck, it's probably a duck. And that's kind of the boiling down to what it is. Not that Smoky Man bad, it's just that he seems just as degenerate as a lot of the people that he's interacting with, but you have to have the context that he's interacting with degenerates and they usually provoke him or they're like hissing and trying to claw at him and attack him. And so he's like going after them and attacking them in their degeneracy so he can even get close enough to like draw the proverbial knife. But to people that are observing it, that don't have that in-depth knowledge, that only look at clips or whatever, they will still see him basically just a degenerate that's being degenerate to degenerates, but he's also saying that he's a Christian and all this stuff. And so everyone is like, wait, you're not supposed to do that. And so they don't even bother to try and understand that he's in the trenches. He's like, it's like World War I, and it's like the Allies are tunneling and they come across Germans that are tunneling. And so they're fighting each other. It's real cutthroat and it's really ugly and it's all fucking degeneracy. But to a casual observer, the brutality of it, the degeneracy of it is off-putting.
I don't think
JS,
that's the case at all.
I
I
disagree.
think that what he's doing mostly is like traditional traditional gender roles that are assigned to men, and people are attacking that, and you guys are attacking him because
What's off-putting is Octavius's attitude. Nobody wants to join something to get more criticism and inspection, right? Nobody wants that. Nobody wants to be subject to Octavius. That's what's off-putting.
There's also a separation in what they're saying is
So
degeneracy.
is Dusty trying to say that I don't have any grounds to like be critical or have something that I wish he would do better?
I'm saying that your criticism seems misplaced because your behavior as a non-Christian, your behavior is much more off-putting than Andrew's, which I view as just humans being humans. It's not even drinking and smoking isn't even against the Bible. It's not against Christianity.
I brought it up, and what I mentioned before is those were the most common. But for me, where it actually is to the point of repugnant is when he goes too far.
So why should he listen to your criticism when you refuse to listen to other people's criticism?
I am listening to yours, but I'm trying to explain.
You're trying to dismiss it as
I'm
fast
doing
as
it. No, I'm
possible.
not trying to dismiss it. I'm trying to get you to understand why it is that I might seem judgmental. Because you're telling me, and I'm listening to you, and you're saying I'm judgmental, and I'm
Mhm.
trying to tell you what I'm being judgmental about specifically. I could give two shits if he smokes or drinks, but that's the most common thing you hear over and over and over, and kind of
from haters and ankle biters.
yeah, which and people that don't matter, or they don't have YouTube, or any way you want to discount them is fine. I'm perfectly on board with that. But for me, because I've been in leadership positions before when I was young and when I was in the military and in the job field and in religious circles and all kinds of different stuff. And there's certain things as a leader that when you're like in a public forum and you step on someone's throat and you go too far, it actually weakens you as a leader. Like there are certain
You're
things that
suggesting that he cut out all the things that have propelled him to success.
no, I'm
right?
not.
Being aggressive, being abrasive.
Yeah, and
Well,
if you
you're
if you as a
suggesting that you're
masculine
suggesting
man,
that he
if you
withdraw.
if you as a masculine man and I are talking, and then you all of a sudden lose your temper and start to physically attack me, that's still bad of you to do. That you shouldn't be doing that, especially if you're like you've built yourself up to this big thing, and then we're talking on a stage in a debate, and then you start physically attacking me. That's going to come across badly, or that people won't like that you did that, even though some are like, yes, blood, give us more blood. And what I'm saying is when he goes too far and he breaks people down too much, or he steps on their throat too hard, it's like the idea of even if you're angry, you still should try to not hit people in a public setting.
Octavius, what would be too far to you? Like what, like, because that's the thing though, is like this is a term we need to flesh out. And the reason why I'm going to say this is like, let's say I have a debate and I crush somebody and I brutally wreck them as a quote unquote wreck them, as I would say, and this person is humiliated or they feel humiliated, they cry, right? And then they like the cameras go off, the lights shut off. Everybody is kind of reeling because of this effect, right? Let's just say that happened for the sake of argument.
Sure.
And they go home, they think about this, they turn on the shower because we do our deepest thinking in the shower, and some seeds are planted. They come back, they turn off their OF account, and they're like, I need to think about my kids. This happens. Now, all of a sudden, this person 4 months later sends Andrew a text and says, you know what? I did it. It was hard for me to think about this because for me to have my worldview change, it was a physical pain that I felt in my flesh. And then they turn around, they make a reappearance, and they come over and they say, "Hey, listen, I know that we had our hard times. I'll have this other debate, but I've since did my YouTube channel, my OF channel, and other things have changed. Now I'm just going to have a political debate." Would you say that these things happen? But we also need to determine like what's too much, because you got to understand on YouTube videos real quick. When we see things that happen on YouTube videos, it can look 10 times bigger than they appear. Whereas the person, maybe they are crying, but maybe they also had a bad day. So what we're using is like kind of like a guesstimate kind of in our perception. You're using perception right now.
With cognitive dissonance, you sometimes need to take a wedge and hammer it in and twist it and actually break their worldview apart. And it's rather traumatic for them. And like, I understand what it is that you're saying. But when you're doing that, it's like doing brain surgery. And if you're not very, very careful, that person could just as easily go home and self-delete, or that they could like lash out in some way or get in an accident. And there's a number of other things that you can't control and shouldn't necessarily be blamed for. But there's still the like, if that happened and something bad came as a result, there would be people that would still castigate you, or there would still
we
be
can't
a cloud
be an absolutist here either.
I'm not saying that you should be, but you're going with the positive, and I'm just pointing out the possible negative where when it goes too far, and it's up to the person that's being affected and the person that's affecting and everyone else, they don't really have all the contextual clues. Like,
so you should behave weakly just in case someone else is.
I'm not advocating
be weak and meek just in case you offend somebody.
Where am I saying that people should be weak? When did I?
But Octavius, I'll even ask you a better question. Do you think that people grow in certain ways to even be better, fine-tune their argument, and learn how to be less of a vicious attacker for unnecessary reasons? Like, let's say I started out this debate career and I started attacking people. I'm like, gosh, the vitriol I'm getting is just asinine. It's just crazy. And then I start toning it down due to like the response factor I'm getting. That's what I'm getting at, is like, maybe like you have to also think like, you don't think that his human response is like, you know what? Yeah, that was bad. I'm reviewing this with my audience, which he does a lot of the times. And then he'll say, you know what? I'm going to approach this differently because the response is this way. I do believe that fine tuning is happening in process of this happening in growth and everything else.
I will agree with you that I am firmly of the opinion that he does have self-reflection. And he does have moments where maybe I went too far, or that didn't come across correctly, or what did I do that had everyone up in arms, and how can I do the like going on to Twitter and X and all the different things to like actually give people a chance to voice their grievances and stuff like that. He does do these things. I will completely grant you that stuff. But whenever you see it where there's two people that are on a stage and one of them, like that time when he was on Fresh and Fit and that friggin' white dude that was like from prison or whatever, and he's all like, you should shave your arms. And he like tried to go flex on Andrew. Like that's something that you can't live down, and it's always going to look bad. And so the times when it goes too far because you're so nosebleedingly high up to that amount of influence, it's like a worse nightmare for people.
Were you saying Wilson looked bad during that exchange?
No, the dude that was trying to flex
Wes
on him.
Watson.
Oh, yeah, Wes Watson.
That
Like
was
he's
so
now me.
stupid.
Yeah,
Course,
but what I'm
here's
so
the thing, though.
as
If
the
you
example of that, if that happens with Andrew, it looks like a different version of that same thing that the internet is forever.
I don't blame you for playing the what if game. I think we should all do this. Powder Dusty's going to walk into an establishment he's never been in one day and just say, what if some bad shit happens? Now, granted, this is going to happen. This is us living like Coda, red, not red, but like a different color, right? We're not in black all the time because that's death, or white. I think we do need to have some level of awareness when we walk into certain situations. But this is what I'm saying, though. He's going to fine tune his approach and even be better. The Andrew next year is going to be fucking 10 times better than what we have today.
I bet that he is.
Probably a whole lot better. So what we're talking about is like speculation, what if, conundrum, the scenarios, things like this. And that's great. And these conversations do need to happen because now we're intellectuals bonding together, Christians coming together on one accord, which is referring to what Abe Dinkins is talking about, creating less division. Even Emmett and you going at it a little bit is good. It's needed so that way you both can have a better understanding. And that's what I'm doing here is
Iron
I think
sharpens iron.
Sooner or later, there's going to be a point to where you're like, this guy's not in. I already think the guy's a beast anyways, but I think there's going to be a point to where he's like fine tune his craft so much where you might even say at one point, I don't know if he can get even better than this. People can reach these levels of like skill set.
He would get better because he's Andrew Wilson.
He
has that capacity.
He does. And we could speculate this the same way with a what if game and scenario. So case in point, I don't think that we can eliminate these causal factors that happen of people responding in disgust, revolt. I think this is going to be a nonstop issue. People trying to clip him out of play. What's happening is because of the growth, also is going to be the growth exponentially of people trying to clip him, cause harm in any kind of way. This is going to just it's almost unavoidable because the numbers are growing, everything else. What else is going to grow?
They all want to be the bullfighter that takes him down, and
they want a piece of him. This is going to happen.
They all want their pound of flesh, and it's that despite that, he manages to like not only like endure it, but he actually thrives and grows, and it's great that he's able to do that. But when you do that, I'm sure if you've had explosive growth with a business where you all of a sudden, oh no, I have twins now, that things can get to be very hectic and stuff can get lost in the shuffle, and you can make mistakes, and those mistakes can be very costly. It's a vigilance issue, and it's more of that. I would be concerned that he might not necessarily be as vigilant as he might need to so far as his reflections go. But I don't know him. I'm not privy to his brain, but it's just from how he seems to react sometimes to his criticisms. Like that to me seems there's a lot of pride, which is fine and deserved, but it's like pride also does goeth before the fall. And that's just what I'm cautious. Like you're hacking into that tree and it's going to fall, and I just sure hope it doesn't fall on you.
I think what you're talking about is ego, but I think we can have a good relationship with our ego. That's the problem. I think people sometimes put ego on a mantle sometimes. I don't think Andrew does this at all. There's a lot of humility that people don't see. We could say behind closed doors, this whole thing.
That he wants every cent of your money, that he gets you to do all the donation goals, and he leaves to troll you. He has those, which is funny. It's entertaining.
I'm entertained by it. But here's the thing though, case in point with me, I run basically talking to what Powder Dusty was talking about. Do you think that he wants the criticism and all this other stuff? I would actually say that I run towards criticism, run towards judgment in these things, because I think that when I run to it, my skin becomes concrete and these things bounce off me a little bit easier, and I'm able to assess and answer questions better.
Since you asked, I think that he would prefer to not have it happen. Most people, unless it's a self-loathing, self-destructive due to guilt, they generally don't go out of their way to be a provocateur where everyone hates them. or that
No,
people have
not to be a
reasons to complain.
provocateur. What I'm talking about is running towards gunfire and not away from that. That's what I'm basically
Well, I'm
talking
wired that
about.
same way. Like if like my neighbor's
Right.
house was on fire, I'd already be over there.
And that's what men do. And I think that he's integrating this through a different method of combat. So that way men can see this, because we have American households absent fathers. And I think that I'm not saying that he's saying that he should be a role model, but I think that if you look at people, I think that he's 1050x better than Andrew
Like
Tate.
it or not, he's similar to Jordan Peterson, that it's like the closest example these fatherless sons have to,
I
so
think
you
that's a
mean you
horrible
can?
example, but proceed.
Well, no, but the idea of, clean your room and like do these things and be a man, and then Andrew Tate's version, and then Andrew Wilson, they're like, because these males, due to broken fatherless homes, like they don't have a matrix. Like their grandfather wasn't there, their uncle wasn't there, they're raised by themselves, their mothers are like, they have a direct IV link to their soul with all of this poison, and that men are bad and all these things you hear about with statistics. And Andrew Wilson, like it or not, even if he doesn't want to be a role model, is for a lot of people, and that cannot be understated how good that is. And I'm not trying to say that he should stop or do everything different. It's
Octavius, remember back in the day, I recently talked to two men, and my mind is fucking blown when I see this. Who I asked them, I said, remember the movie Predator? These two grown ass men, like beyond 30s, were telling me, they said, no, what is that? Like, I literally almost lost my shit when I heard this.
What?
So the reason I bring
Predator movie, right?
The first Predator movie, where they clasp arms and they're like, "You son of a bitch,
do it,
son of a bitch." So this happened, right? But here's the problem with this, and this is alluding to what I'm talking about. When you see these movies, you had muscular men; they were tough. And you didn't need women in these movies to make them movies at all, right? It was nothing but men.
Arnold repeatedly didn't want romantic entanglements because he didn't think it was appropriate.
And I agree. And this is what I'm going to alluding to, is that you had a lot of masculine men that ran towards gunfire, were gung-ho. You would probably even show that movie today. They'd say that's toxic masculinity. Case in point, now we have people like Robert Pattinson, no muscle tone, looks very emo, looks like he would get the shit beat out of him if he walks into a club. But it's like, long are the days that we have men like this or movies like this. We don't have anything like this. Captain Marvel, assuming the hollow husk of what a woman isn't, right, cosplaying as a man, attaining all these, there's no character development, nothing like
he's
this.
Still henpecked. Even though he's masculine, he's henpecked, and he's been put in a corner, and it's like a crucified Holocaust survivor of what masculinity should be. It's barely alive, but at least it's alive.
Well, here's the thing. In comes Andrew Wilson. Now it's like he doesn't need the muscle or anything else, but people are looking at this. They're looking at this guy as the same thing as Arnold back in the day, fighting the great evil. And of course, they're going to reel, if that movie was put out today, you're going to have feminists be like, oh, that's toxic masculinity. Well, Andrew is tantamount to the same thing that we would see on the silver screen, but except instead of seeing Arnold and people's guts being blown everywhere else, they're seeing great evil being destroyed in mass through podcasts, debates, and their logic is being tested and challenged even at home. So let's say I don't even change your mind. Well, the 10,000 viewers are now going to see the distinction between my worldview and yours. And I think that this is great. I'm not going to say that he's a role model. Maybe you could say, well, he doesn't say he's a role model, but he is regardless, in your opinion, what you just said. But I think Arnold would be the same way too on the silver screen. But it's like nowadays, no matter how you portray this masculinity, it's going to be toxic to somebody, regardless of how you piece it together or put it out there. It's a product, which is good, I think. I think it's a good fight. He's fighting a good fight.
Any advocacy for gender roles or masculine at all is always going to be reviled. It's like if you call out the name of Christ and the demons will recoil, and it mentions that when you do that you have to be careful, because otherwise the 7 times 7 or 7 more, whatever the quote is, will come back in, and it'll be like that much worse so far as like casting out demons and stuff. And for me, that's kind of in a nutshell like my criticism of him, is that he's doing good work, but if it isn't done correctly or it isn't done completely, that it can actually lead to something like much, much worse being spawned.
Can I be obvious? Can I be honest with you, Octavius?
Sure.
Like, let's say if I took away everything that we just had in this conversation, right, and I kind of boiled it down, like I'm just gonna be honest, part of it would sound like an HR department talking to me about an employee, to be honest.
Yeah,
how am I wrong?
No, I think you're right in your criticism. I think that somewhere between the the hater Karen and the ball washer is probably the right perspective.
Guys, it was a pleasure for having me on. Abe, I gotta run. Rage quit.
Hey, have
I
a good
know,
night, dude.
but Have a
You
good
quit,
night.
you lose. You quit, you lose.
I know. Have a good one.
Have a good night, Emmett.
Take it easy, feminism. He literally had
See,
this shit on his picture.
There are like ways that people can do the tone policing, and it's offensive. Nobody likes it. They don't want to sit there and get lectured about their language or whatever. They don't want to put up with it. And I understand that it can seem that way. I genuinely do. And I'm not trying to do that because I am completely aware that Andrew does a lot of good. He has internalized growth, that there's all of these positives that he has. But also when people are in leadership positions, they're held to higher standards. And
I
that's
just think
mostly
it
what
takes
I'm
an
citing that needs to be
astonishing lack of self-awareness and massive amount of hubris for somebody like yourself who doesn't have a channel, has not succeeded in this avenue, to point at somebody who is succeeding in this avenue and potentially think that you know what he's doing wrong or better or right.
Okay,
Like,
so
that's crazy to me.
That's somewhat argument for authority, but I can still think that the president isn't doing something good, so I shouldn't be able to criticize the president because I'm not the
But
president.
Octavius, I think that the HR department, everybody believes is for the employee, when really they're representing the employer. And they always tell you, they're going to say, well, no, this is for your best interest. No, they're trying to prevent liabilities for the company, not your best interest. And I think what the Powder Dusty is alluding to is I think on its face, it looks like the human resources department, because you're going to say, well, yes, of course, no, this is for your best interest. I'm really looking out for you. But everybody else in mass, if they were to hear you, are probably going to hear the same thing from, because we're looking on the outside in at you, right? We're going to see, okay, no, you're the company. You sound like the company right now. And of course, you're going to say you're looking out for our best interest. That's how it appears to me.
That seems a lot like what you were saying, that you can't describe intent or know the mind of people, and that people that are complaining them, they all come across as that, whereas I just seem like I'm doing the same thing in a different sort of situation.
I'm just speaking from perspectives in optics, just the same way you are from your end too, right? Fair enough,
no,
right?
I understand, but when you have people who are in leadership roles, they are held to higher standards, and there are times where it's good to encourage them to look within to see as just a what's working, what's not, just to check in every however many months if you're a business owner, being is this stuff selling as well? Is this stuff not? Should I change? And you should be encouraged, make sure your taxes are in order. There's a lot of just as you're growing and everything is going on, that it's even more important to be very, very careful with the moves that you make because of the height that you could fall from.
Have you looked at what is working for him and what is not working for him?
I think they're saying too, if you're too careful, you don't go anywhere. You don't get any.
Yeah, I'm not advocating
for
being weak or timid. That's not what I'm saying.
Octavius, I think he's going to. Do you believe that all men at some point, whether or not they had a father in their life, are going to end up self-calibrating?
In terms of figuring out a way to figure out how to find a solution to something?
Being solution oriented and also finding a less problematic way of going about life and succeeding.
Yeah. They'll find a way to be lazy where it's less energy, better results.
And would you also agree that outside criticism can sometimes force people to change if they do it at the behest of other people, and it can kind of seem artificial and kind of fake when presented on its face when we try to
as a negative, yes, but there's also the positive where if you were a leader, let's say you're the captain of a ship and you're losing your stack and your first officer pulls you in and is like, hey, this is how it's coming across to the crew. What's going on? We need to talk about this so you can be more, even if you got to be angry, you can't be coming at them a certain way because it'll undermine your authority.
I'm glad you brought that up. I'm so glad you brought that up. Case in point, Rachel Wilson is at his side in the home as a wife. I think that provides in-home actually version of this. She'll talk to him and just say, hey, you know what? This is just my opinion. I don't know how you feel about this. The wives do this sometimes. They'll talk to you and they'll pull you to the side. He's already got that built in. And not only that, but he's also representing this and mapping this onto reality of men to say, hey, I should get a wife like Rachel Wilson too. So that way I can have a crewman that's on my ship with me to go. So there's a lot of promotion here.
Yeah, there's a sounding board.
That's great.
Really good aspects she brings to it. I'm aware of that.
Right. And that's kind of built in to that situation. And I just want to point that out because you're bringing up your hypothetical with, I have a real world version of that that's built
Yeah.
in. Well, he does.
Well, like if he and I were like close friends, like I still would, voice these that it's like what you're doing. There's a lot of people that complain about it. Like, have you thought about it? And he might tell me he has, or might tell me to fuck off. But I still would be like, if I was in that situation, I might ask him about it, but I'd be respectful and just, oh, you got this under you're totally under control with this, and you're like moving past it, and you've got like a strategy to do it, and maybe you're doing it intentionally to like get everybody saying your name. I don't know why you're doing it. Like, I get it. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that, but there's also nothing wrong with me being able to like voice criticisms, even if
You're right.
they may
There's
be
nothing wrong. I
handling
mean,
away.
I say this with goodwill and good heart and good intent. There's nothing wrong with the HR department with having their positions and criticisms, because there are times when they could be for the employee too. But at the end of the day, they're an extension of the employer. So,
Oh, I understand.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, he could avoid all these concerns that you have if he just closed the channel and shut down altogether, couldn't he?
I'm not advocating for him to do that.
I'm just saying.
Reaction.
I'm
just
just
saying
that would
saying.
work too.
That's not what I'm advocating. No, that would actually be a net negative.
Yeah, and I think that so would him starting to be
In a
prim and
cost-benefit
proper.
analysis, the damage that
Mhm.
Andrew Wilson does is far outweighed by the good.
That-
Now, something that I would point out is in a IFBB, or what do you want me to refer to you as? I'm not actually
Okay.
sure.
you can call it. So let me provide a quick synopsis of this whole thing. Like, it's a movie. It's not, but IFBB is the International Federation of Bodybuilding. I turned pro in 2 world-class sports.
So is it
So I compete
Rayless?
against the elite. Marte Rayless. You can call me Marte.
Okay, so Marte. Okay, thank you for sharing that. So, if you, are you Orthodox
On
Christian?
steroids?
No, but are
Um,
you
I mean-
Orthodox?
I'm a catechumen, so it's like me taking classes to become baptized.
You're associated with it, correct?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, so when
Especially-
you go and you see I'm assuming the term is priest, the officiating the service.
You can
correct?
say priest or father. It's
Okay,
what
you
Abe
see
Davis
the-
would say. Pastor would
the-
still be the same thing.
Yeah, you see the father, the priest, whatever term you're most comfortable with, because I'm not actually familiar with Orthodoxy.
You can
to
say
that level.
father. That's fine.
Okay,
I'll take
you see the father that's, they do what they're doing at the ritual, they're wearing certain things, they have like a uniform or outfit, correct?
correct.
Okay, so in this situation, if you were to, from that, go to a random non-denominational Presbyterian, and the guy's wearing flip-flops and like short shorts that his underwear is almost sticking out, and like a wife beater t-shirt, and would that person to you seem to exude authority or the position that a father should hold within a congregation?
I would say that. Well, are you talking about to me or for me to be respectful and say to them?
Well, just in your heart of hearts, like seeing it, that it's like might seem a bit of a joke, or it's just like he's not like being the kind of the gravity of him being in the position of being a father to a flock, that it might seem kind of ridiculous or seem silly, or like you would wish you were instead back at your home church. Like, would you say that any of that is true to some extent?
Yes, it could be true. Yeah.
So if you want to cut to the heart of it, there are some aspects where people think that Andrew Wilson should be, as a father, wearing the robes and all of that, but instead they see him in flip-flops and shorts and wife beater. And they're like, hey, if you're in that position, I'm not really comfortable with it. I can't say why, so I'm just going to try and criticize you in real passive aggressive ways that, are basically tone policing. But there's still it doesn't seem the way it is due to the cognitive dissonance for whatever reason or why.
Those
And
are
I'm
the
just
people
trying
that
to-
you're not going to get to anyways. You're
Well,
not
I
going to get.
understand.
Yeah.
I'm cognizant of that, and I'm just trying to figure out if there's a way, because those people, if they got past themselves, really would agree with you. Like, is there any way to build bridges with that, or changing it so that at least you're wearing like really expensive flip-flops, or like whatever that you're still wearing flip-flops, but you just change in strategic ways to like try
Can
and
I give
have
you a
it
good
where-
example?
Sure.
I want to clarify. I'm really good at cutting to the chase and through the
Good.
BS, everything. Let's say I go to the beach. I'm a world-class bodybuilder and I take my shirt off. The guy next to me sulks and he's like, oh, I'm a fat ass. I need to lose weight. This guy is feeling shame. We can call this static societal shame because I'm not doing anything. I'm not vocalizing shame to him, but he's feeling shame from a static perspective,
And it's
right?
not
I
your
can't
fault
change
he's
that.
feeling shame.
and it's not my fault because of my
Yeah.
existence and my appearance, should I say. Now, granted,
Yeah, him
he's
being
not going
inadequate
to-
is not your fault.
it's not my fault. Same thing with the priest. So this guy feels shame, and I notice that he sulks. My woman next to me, or wife next to me, says, "Oh God, is maybe her attraction is built because of the social status implications of this." So I'll cut to the chase. This guy, next thing you know, nothing, like, let's say I don't change, like there's not a thing I could say, get on a diet, eat carrots, put the pie away, everything. There's nothing I could say. There's a populace that we're agreeing to, the cognitive dissonance. Now, later on in his life, let's say 4 years down the line, this guy's a heart attack, recovers and says, "Oh crap, I really need to change my ways." Then he thinks back to the beach and says, "Wait, hold on. I saw this guy. All right, I really need to change because I remember the shame that I felt when I met this guy. I really need to go ahead and do a
And he
turnaround."
looks you up on YouTube. He tells you about his journey and all those
And
things.
then sometime there's a turnaround where we see the error of our ways for following things that were false. That's what I'm getting to.
And
Well, people do this on their own.
within your example,
Yeah.
if the person thinks under your breath, you're like, "Hey, fucking fat ass, you're gross, get away from me." And that person, when they're in that position of self-shame, even if the person doesn't say that, but they're still ascribing that to them because they're looking for a justification to be like, "Oh, that's a bad person, smoky man bad," that there could be things with that you can't control those, but an analysis of it to make sure that your fly isn't down accidentally, or that you don't you like, "Oh crap, I forgot to wear shorts," or some sort of thing relative to that, like just to make sure that your house is in order. That's pretty much all I'm advocating for.
Do you understand that what the heart attack in the example was? That was the flies down. And once that happened, once we make mistakes and we get called, we get embarrassed because we got told our flies down by a group of girls, not because of recommendation or we were told to change, but because they laughed. And I was like,
well,
what
I
are
meant
they
you as a
looking at?
bodybuilder. Like, you're out there, you've got your wife with you, and no matter what you do, that if you're kind or mean to him, the guy's still going to feel that shame. But if you might mutter something under your breath that's misunderstood, or your fly is down, or you're not wearing shorts, or you're nude, or any number of things that, like, as a checklist that's internal, that as you're going to the beach consistently, putting these people to shame, whether you do anything about it or not, like, just to make sure, like, is my fly up? Am I wearing shorts? Like, is my wife not doing something wildly inappropriate to embarrass me and herself? Just to make sure that there's no reason that they could, like, actually sink their teeth into you.
Do you think people have off days, Octavius?
They do.
Right. There could be a day I forget, even if I'm cognizant of it, that one time, because we how many times do we piss every day or whatever, right? So our zipper's down so many different times. We're
or you don't shake it enough and you have
I'm asked with so many opportunities to not zipper up. There could be a one case or a couple cases, but people are more likely to remember those cases where you didn't zip your zipper up. They're never going to address, "Hey, I saw a good job on zipping your zip." That's never going to happen.
Yeah,
but they're going to remember the one or two times.
Because you're a world-class bodybuilder and you have all of this going for you, they will look at that like very human thing that you did.
It's going to be magnified because I'm a pro.
Exactly. And so
what's happening with Andrew is like, it doesn't. So
is that same thing.
The normal things that he's going to do, like let's say that he errs in some way, it's going to be like somebody doing it 10,000 times. Now, granted, there's no way to eliminate the few times to make so, I mean, case in point, like let's say I need to go ahead and do 2,000 favors to my wife and say, "Hey, here are the roses to make up for the time that I forgot her birthday." Now, this is human behavior where we're talking about this. And it's like, this is how women operate for the most. And of course, I'm painting a broad brush. If I do something in error with my wife, I better damn well do 5 good things to make her forget about this. Well, this is human behavior.
There's something in your interaction that you would figure out a way to smooth the ruffled feathers. I would assume that
this is going to be a continuing process. Yeah, this is going to be a continuing process. I mean, this is a really semantical HR discussion, to be honest with you.
Well, I mean, as you've grown in popularity and becoming a bodybuilder and kind of the do's and don'ts of it, you may have had your fly down and just never even realized it. And then all of a sudden it took one guy at the beach being like, "Hey, your fly's down, right?" You're like, "Oh shit. Damn, I've been walking around all day. I've been doing this all week. I haven't changed my shorts at all. Thanks, man." Like, that is more of Not that he's too dumb to understand these things, or he's not actively doing it, or he doesn't have a strategy for why he's doing it.
I got a
or the
better way to
best
say it.
intentions of all that. It's just that's where I'm coming from with
The
it.
the best way to say what you just said right now is like, let's say I had a camera take a photo of me and this is blasted in magazines because I'm a pro bodybuilder and I have status, or somebody took a video and next thing you know, this thing's on Instagram Reels, it's on TikTok Reels, everything else. And now it's like, oh, I can't live this down, like the pickle jar or the
Yeah,
olive
where it
jar.
makes you look bad, or like you're sitting in a way that it makes your belly pooch out, and it's like, oh,
Right.
look at Marte's big belly. Oh,
If-
look at him. You
if
can't
we're
open
being
pickle jars. Yeah, that kind of
intellectually
thing.
honest here, I think that people naturally look past these things over time. Time does a number which is good on us. Time can relinquish the power that anger has, the power that memories have over even really controversial things that happen. So if his nature is
it's
good,
an energy conversation.
and his energy is good, right? So this
conversion,
could be a transcendental conversation easily, but
you have to conserve it, because staying that angry for that long is a lot of energy. Most
right.
people they let go of it.
Over time, this whole pickle jar thing is going to be like nothing. People are going to forget
It's a
about
meme.
it.
No, it'll
Just
be a
like,
meme.
you know, the lady that was crying before him, like let's say there was a lady crying and he came across a little bit too harsh and he was like, you know what, I shouldn't have, I went a little bit too, things like that's going to be a part of the past. And the, like I said, the Andrew Wilson next year is going to be 10 times better than this year. I mean, we're just like semantic
The
HR in
only
here.
way that it'll stay is people that are looking for justifications to try and tear him down because they've put him as an idol,
More work for
which is
them.
actually a big no-no. And that they'll look for, like, it's kind of the hate watching stuff. Like, those kind of people won't let it. But for the majority,
You're not
of
going to
people,
last
you're
though.
right.
Remember
No,
what you
for
said
the
about holding
majority
out
of
of
people,
hate?
you're right. Yeah, they'll burn out, and for the majority of people, they won't care, or that it's like, oh, pickle jar, and then people will just like spam it with memes because it's been made into a joke. Where Andrew was like, oh no, I broke my wrist, took $10,000 to heal it, boo hoo, I grifted. Like, the playing with it, that's probably one of his best strengths, is to use comedy to deflect and also have a form of acceptance.
The guy's funny, very, very charismatic. I'm trying to get better myself.
He does a ton of stuff really, really, really well, which is why it's like, if he were to have a fall from grace for whatever reason, like, that to me it'd be like just very disheartening, because it's like the representation of we didn't only topple Andrew Wilson, we toppled what he represents, we toppled Christianity, we toppled, you know, the masculine man, the stay-at-home wife, that everything he's advocating. It's like a lawyer that like got a whole bunch of people, really bad people, thrown away in jail, and then there's some kind of bad thing that happens,
and then the people got released eventually because
Exactly.
everybody has a release date. I know what you're getting at, but here's the thing that I'm going to counter this with, and it's not about me countering you because we're not having a debate.
You're good.
We're having a really good discussion here. So here's the thing that I'm going to propose to you. The whole goodwill that he has moving forward to this, I think that we do need an adversary that's going to give us motivation. So I think what he does, and I'm not assuming that this is what he does, what people do, I'll say this better, what people generally do, if they're good natured and they serve a purpose greater than themselves, is they'll take this adversary, notice that it's getting bigger and stronger and developing more hatred. We're going to develop ourselves to combat this naturally. And what I was talking about is like calibrate ourselves to meet said onslaught face head on. So it's like, so all he's going to do is just meet it and be better. It's going to be relentless, and
if
there's going to be
vampires, you need the right tools.
It's going to happen.
You need different ones.
You'll never have Andrew Wilson's fight absent sin, Satan, and all this debauchery that's happening in society. And the bigger it grows, the better he's going to get.
I was just going to say that too. He's also building up others to also fight on the front. Like, you've got Rob Noor also rising, you've got Marte rising, you've got a bunch of people that are also getting into the ring, and they're not all like Andrew. Andrew is Andrew's brand, but they're all fighting that same fight of pushing back degeneracy and taking back.
He's trying to get a coalition like the Avengers in his own way, but as an extension of something I'm talking about with criticisms, is that I used to be rather active in his Discord. And it's not, he's not responsible for what people do or say. I'm not trying to ascribe that at all. But it is kind of a top down that there will be people that try to do what he does, but they're very, very, very immature about it, or they don't know why it works. That just does. And some of the interactions with the people that are doing that have not gone over very well. It's led to some acrimony. I actually had people like that were telling me I should like end myself, and like some of the people that should be in a position of authority weren't doing anything about it. And it's like there was a lot of hostility about certain subjects, and it was
There it is. There
No,
it is.
it's-
You are a Karen. You're a complaining ass Karen.
Octavius,
what I'm
tell you
saying
this.
is that if you have stuff from the top, like as an example in Washington D.C., the corruption of that, you can't be surprised when your local government.
Bro, just find a different Discord server. Your advice is terrible. It's telling him to do the opposite of what made him successful. And as I said earlier, if you're trying to be appealing to non-Christian degens, which I think I'm the representative of here, you're not doing it well. You're doing the opposite of it.
Well, actually, Octavius, I have an answer for that. So I won the Mr. Arizona. I've turned pro probably in my second crack at
Did you say
nationals.
Miss Arizona?
Mr.
You said Miss.
I assumed you were saying Mr. though.
Trying to catch the goof a little bit. Okay, I get it. But here's the thing. Here's what I'm getting at, Octavius. I think that when I turned pro and I was in magazines, signed with MHP, had all these sponsors and stuff, there's like 3 big ass posters of me in gyms here in the state. I travel to compete, whatever you want to call it. There's gyms that I've gone to where people are like, I just wanted to be big like Marte. So what I did was not only did I emulate this, but I wanted to just be strong. I wanted to get the status, all this other stuff. There was probably a couple people that I've met that did this, but they were like, yeah, but I took steroids and I did this, did this route or whatever. So despite how good our efforts may be, you're going to have legions behind you that are going to do things the wrong way.
Yeah,
and
you're not responsible for that.
Try to find quick ways and short ways around the system, thus damaging themselves, reputations in the process. Loved ones are there's going to be crossfire. Things are going to happen. It's like the only thing we could do is mitigate what we do with ourselves and lives and produce great content, like me having speeches with people at convention centers, shaking hands and saying, hey, don't do this. This is the way you want to do this. But not everybody's going to meet you in person. They're only going to get the clips they get, and their exposure is going to be limited. Why? Because my status prevents them from meeting me. So
I can understand that.
Limitations.
And there's only so much that you can do. And you can't be held responsible that if some fan of yours did steroids and then they lifted too much weight and their muscle ripped away from their bone, they're trying to be like, oh, Marte did this thing and made me do it to myself. And it's like, yeah, right. I didn't do that. I never advocated that.
But
I'm not responsible.
I've heard this. I've literally heard this. And I've heard fallacious things about me. This is the Marte stack. I took DECA and tested all this. I never told anybody to take this. And I'm hearing my name in group chats, or I heard my name in group chats about giving instructions for pharmaceutical. I'm not a doctor, and I've never done this once, but I'm hearing this as if like it's the truth and gospel to somebody.
It's the gospel
and
truth,
it's like, well, we look at Andrew Wilson, it's probably the same thing. Well, maybe they're trying to take the same route as the debater and they're going this route, but then they're overbearing. They're not doing this properly. The interactions they're having with him to justify and have clarification, things like this are maybe limited because they're not putting themselves in the path to get correction that they need to. I think that people are going to be falling into these classes, a subset of people that are unavoidable. I hate to say this, but it's going to exist.
Oftentimes look for excuses for bad behavior. Most often. And it's if you underestimate that, you're going to have a world of trouble.
Even people that aren't. Even people that are good-natured and trying to find their best way are going to have some detached. Like, if I want the whole pie, why do I only have 4 pieces? You're going to have people like this.
It's the selfish self-interest with the benevolent intentions. Like, even the best case or worst case where they look for ways to, like, manifest eating all the pie. Or they're just, hey, I'm really hungry. I did all this work. I paid for all the food. Like, hey, I'm going to put the pie to the side and try to hide it so that I'm able to eat it. And you're doing it in a much nicer way, but it's still, you're doing the same functional thing.
There's always going to be bad intention leeches that jump onto any strong movement, honestly.
Yeah. And that's something that is bad if it happens. And inevitably, the higher up you get, it's going to be circumstantial, that it's like almost taken for granted that, like, the people will try to dox you, or they'll try to, use your name in vain, or like say that, oh, this person, does all the steroids and stuff, so therefore I should do it too. And they're like, people are spreading misinformation and they don't actually know you, but they're saying that, you this is exactly what you mean, but you're like, I've never said that. I never talked about that. Why are you doing that? Oh, it's to justify your bad behavior.
Octavius, it's even worse than that. Not to interrupt you, but it's
No,
even
you're
worse
good.
than that. So the biggest, I guess, proponent and supporter of bodybuilding, one of the secret subgroups is gay people, to be honest with you. So here's what happened. I turned, Andrew was the one, if I'm going to be honest, that inspired me to turn back to Christianity, because the West has kind of turned me away from that in many ways. It's that Ned Flanders culture. You know, it's just, so I don't want to go down that path because that's going to be a long conversation, but this is what I'm getting to. Is this group has supported bodybuilding a long time for obvious reasons. You're going to look at statues, walking around the flesh as gay. Who wouldn't want to be associated with that as gay people, right? Yeah. This is ultimate development. Here's the problem with that. Now, all of a sudden, I'm antithetical to their belief and I'm Christian. It's like now I'm doing debates against certain adjacent topics to their culture. Guess what's going to happen? Now I have the Transformer movement attacking me, and matter of fact, doxing me. I've got death threats from this movement, everything. Yeah. I'm just because I've amassed such a fall. So it's like, even in the most good-natured sense that we can have to just find truth and lead people to truth. I'm not even doing this on purpose. I'm not telling people I'm a Christian. I'm not leading debates with this. But when they dive deeper and further into what I do, they're going to be the mouthpiece and vocal about this, and they're going to tell everybody else. And exponentially, guess what's going to rise? Hatred, threats. Now I have new enemies I've never had before.
Just by how you've been treating me and talking with me and the things that you've mentioned, like that's all forms of witnessing. That it's just like who you are, what matters to you, your genuine values. Because you could be like totally like blowing me off, or like, swinging your proverbial big dick around, or, but you're being patient and discussing and trying to understand and actually like have a conversation, because there are other people that are observing it, but also because the two of us are interacting. That's all a form of witnessing. And people that you interact with in these ways, the reason they do that is because of what you represent, just by being that dude. And then the flabby guy next to you is like, oh man, I feel like crap. And there's that seed in them that's leading them to manifest them like debating you and trying to attack you and, really, really come after you, because it hits this really deep, hard chord to them, because they have an ideology and that's all they are. And if you challenge that ideology, they will crumble as a person, despite being able to move 500 pounds.
Here's the point, and I'm going to point to Abe Dinkus for this. Like, let's say I did portray myself as this person that was impatient, intolerant, and then I just wanted to go ahead and just vilify you here to his audience and everything, right? You would turn around and say, Abe, this is you? This is your friend? This is what you're associated with? Same thing to Andrew Wilson. This is what you keep around? Come on, man. This is like very contrarian. It's like, Abe, this is what you bring on the channel. So I have to think, like, not to mention that, but there's also another factor that I think we've negated to include in this whole function, is this being recorded? Yes. Being recorded on my end too, but hopefully
the internet is forever.
So here's the thing. Yes. And that's the thing, those people will clip the shit out of this, and they're going to be like, look at what the scumbaggery that this is him. So they will tend to look at me as a reference point for people I hang around with. If you're around 4, you're going to be the 5th. And this is what we're talking about. The rhetoric that I'm referring to is like, you're as genuine as you like. If I look at your wife, she's a representation of you. If you're married, I'm just going to assume that you're married in this hypothetical. We'll call it that.
You're fine.
When I meet your wife, I'm going to know so much more about you without even meeting you than anybody could possibly ever tell you. By the way she conducts herself with me, by the way her slit's not so high, all this other stuff, I'm going to make a judgment about you. And we've been doing this.
By the way that she flirts with the powdered Dusty.
I'm judging the hell out of you, especially for that too.
Well,
for
it's the feminine,
dirty.
The feminine is like the moon, where it's a reflection of the masculine or the sun. And you can tell everything you need to know about a man by how his wife acts.
Yeah. If I shake your hand, we had something back in the day. It's like, I don't even know how congruent this is for today. If I shook your hand and you gave me the fish, I would be honest. I would automatically size you up. Like, we have ingrained in culture these things that happen.
I would make you vulnerable if I shook your hand that way, and you would understand that instinctively, that it push comes to shove, I'm in a panic or I'm going to do something, and then a tense situation is now people are fighting. I would endanger you with the fishing.
Go back with the women and cry with them as we are in the front dying for you. That's what I'd say. And then there would be like, if I can't even coin the term, I don't know if it exists, but male revulsion. That's what would happen in a sense. And I'd be like, okay, well, we know your place in society when shit hits the fan.
Yeah, you're a
Automatically,
bitch, and I want to beat it out of you if you don't
Yep.
stop.
so in recorded spaces, it's the same thing, but only like what Powder Dusty was alluding to. It's living forever. Like it's there's ways we can like kind of immortalize ourselves in small spaces, but except this could be weaponized against you. Now, what I don't want to do is provide you more ammunition to use against me. So I think in Andrew's wisdom, he doesn't want to do this. So I think that he's self-calibrating and using the wisdom and foresight to say, I don't need to be putting out any more ammunition and attacks against me because I get
Exactly.
enough. So
I don't
already
think that he ever
attacks
does
against
anything.
him are
I don't
helping
think
to
he-
self-calibrate him, believe it or not. I
I
think
don't
this
think-
is anybody.
I don't think he ever intentionally like goes out of his way to step on throats. And I hope you understand that he will have that, oh crap, I did it again. It's now been clipped. It's forever. And that he does, I would wager, and I wasn't trying to overtalk you, but I completely agree.
No, you're good.
Because he's so successful that he does actively, like, there's this thing that I learned in the military, that it's an after action report. That you do something that is good or bad, you're like, okay, what worked? What did
Debriefing.
How can I do it faster?
Yeah.
How can I save money? How can I be more efficient? How can I have less people? How can I improve? And what did I do bad? And what are ways I can change? And I would hope that, and obviously from his success, like he's doing a lot of things right. And I'm not like trying to tell him that he should like change everything about himself. It's just I've been in positions that aren't that, but I've been in positions of leadership where like one wrong misstep and like the Frankenstein's monster, sharpen the pitchforks. We're going to come after you if we can find an excuse. And that's a really scary, isolating place to be, especially
Octavius,
if you're in that position.
just understand, if like I'm going to put you in this position, let's say that somebody handed you an olive jar and you had a hard time opening up this olive jar because it was just jammed, right? And this was blown up to such a degree where it was like just a big, you might as well have ran over a kid. That's how big this is. If they're doing this over an olive jar, you would think, crap, just imagine how much I need to mitigate. I really need to be careful. Watch. Think about how much self-calibration is being given to a person who is looking at this. This is just an olive jar, and this is what I got from this. So the level of like
he's advocating
self-reflection
for
he's probably
masculine
getting is
and
like
different
10x
stuff.
that.
Well, it's that he's also at the same time juggling lit chainsaws, which are masculine, male roles, male this, women that, and then the girl opens the jar and you can't. It's like, tell me you have a silver bullet without telling me you have a silver bullet, and to adjust. And like I mentioned, it took $10,000 to heal my wrist, and that he's turned it into a meme, and that he has a sense of humor about it, and it's like being gracious about the jester making fun of the king. And that people laugh, and he's like, okay, get your laugh. All right, in a week this won't matter, but you still have to suffer your lumps. And that's what he's doing. He did a really good job of that specifically. Like, I can't think of a better way that I probably would have done a way worse job on. I might have lost my stack. I mean, I'm not Andrew Wilson. I can't say what I would have done instead. It probably would have been the wrong choice.
A lot of people in his position could easily end up walking caricatures, poked fun of by society, right? We can see that, right? But what he's done is he's
satirical political cartoon. Yeah,
exactly the same thing that Jim Bob draws sometimes, things like this. What he's in a sense become is the authentic, genuine, from what I see and what everybody else can see. And I can tell you so far, like the genuine, real deal. But everybody's going to test this to make sure, there's no way that this is real, that he's this guy that's very charismatic, genuine, and really wants to seek the truth, because this is harsh when it comes across to me. They're going to constantly be poking with a stick, doing fact checking, just checking to see if it's a real diamond, all this other stuff that people do with everything else in reality. He's a constant test, and he's going to be constantly shit tested. It's going to be a constant thing. So it's like, if anything that we need to be doing there in this conversation or afterwards is give this guy some prayer, talk to God about him, and say that, hey, you know what? This guy's a brother of ours, and he's fighting this fight that I don't even know we can imagine what he's dealing with. And it's like, this guy's, I don't know, modern day Samson, in my opinion.
I can only imagine the pressure, honestly.
We can't even imagine. Right. That's what I'm saying.
I have actually done that, and there have been other people that are very fervent anti-Andrew, or like something he did really bother. And I have tried to be like, hey, you got to think of the good versus the bad and pros and cons, and also understand like maybe why it happened. What did he do afterward? Like, did he post an apology, or like, did he no longer ever do that again? Or like, why is it that it would have happened? Would you have done anything different if you're getting attacked and attacked and attacked, and you finally snap at them, and then that's what gets clipped? Like, and I do try to point that out to other people, but when you hear the same sorts of things, it makes it difficult to not be like, I really just want him to be careful.
You got to remember too, though, like this is a man, and he's subject to all the things we are, and the pressure that he's under is 100,000 times what we deal with on a daily basis. You have to imagine every leftist hates him, every group that's leftist hates him, every feminist movement hates him, every trans movement hates him. He is going to have attacks from every angle at every hour of every day. So I would say what he's doing is probably more calibrated than we could even understand.
So,
And
in
just
case in
as-
point, I'm on Twitter, or X, should I say? There's one person, she who shall not be named. I'll call her this. I don't want to give anybody attention that's undeserved, because I think we can do promotion here accidentally that we don't intend to do.
Yeah.
This person has attacked Rachel Wilson and Andrew so fervently that I said, you know what? Let me go ahead and draw the attention on me. I'll take all the arrows for them, because they've literally stalked, did all this other stuff online, and they've possibly been blocked or whatever, and they don't stop raving and ranting. So what I did was I put myself in front of like the bullets and said, okay, cool. What I've looked at this is, and this is the performative example I'm going to give you. I put myself in the firing path of this specific person because I had questions. I said, surely they must not hate Andrew this much. I know that there's people that could see past all this stuff through the logic. The people that you're referring to, no, they can't be so, feet dug in the ground that much. Surely I can get them to move. Guess what? Took them in 3 spaces. I don't know if you know what spaces are in X, but I opened up spaces. It's an audio channel where we can't see anybody, but we can do debates and talk and group chat. And there's a bunch of people in this room. And literally,
it's like a Discord call.
Discord call. I did my first one today with Rob Norm. But anyway,
excuse me.
So we were in this conversation, right? And I was literally dragging this person. Mind you, I don't attack people. I don't do personal insults. And I'm just as patient as I am with you, right? Talking to this person, refuting everything. Women can't leave in the church. This is ridiculous. Can you show me where that's at? Refuting this, refuting that. And it's like, no, I have permission from my pastor to do this. And I'm like, that's crazy. Can you, literally also dragging them on everything else. Drag, cognitive dissonance forever. This has been like the third exchange. And you know what I did on the third exchange? I said, you know what? I'm purposely doing this, even though they have cognitive dissonance. They're not going to change their mind or do anything else. And I clipped a long session. Well, I made a long session of like 40 minutes of a debate with them with a bunch of people in the panel, right? What I'm going to do is say, this is going to be posted on YouTube and how not to debate. This is what we do during this and that. So I think that even though I'm looking for use, it's not just entertainment value, but I'm also going to help people out.
Yeah, there's the audience.
Right. And then there's an audience, but I also the underlying score to this that I'm going to hint at or point to is that I met somebody who will not change no matter how much and how kind I am to them. So I use the brutal route of dragging them. Then I used a route of just understanding patience, let them monologue forever. Didn't work. So I used all these techniques and understanding abilities of me and my Christian ethics and ethos and understanding nothing. Right. So I finally met the person that won't budge. So I guarantee you she's not an outlier in the fact that we think she is. I think there are more people like her. Maybe not that many. We could say there are tons of exceptions to the rule, if that's the best way I could coin it.
I'd say they are legion personally, but that's just me.
But there's still value from these people. I think that we can use them like I did myself, like I explained to you.
You use them like as the literal straw man, and you're
Examples,
like, this is where you attack. This is how you do it. This is what it looks like when you're an irrational idiot that like shouldn't have the right to vote, hypothetically.
And that's what I've done. Yeah.
And I understand that I'm like average guy going to pick my kid up from school, going 25 miles an hour in the school zone. Whereas Andrew is like a Formula One, like Indianapolis 500, like hyper-tuned machine going like all this speed and left turns all day, and the slightest thing could, you could careen into the crowd and like all these horrible things. And I am very aware of this. I'm not trying to say that I should be a race car driver or he should be in front of me or behind me picking up his kids.
I get what you're saying.
But what I am saying is that if I were at the pit or like in a position where he was walking past me, I would be like, "Hey, have a good race. Did you do all your like systems checks? Like, you good to go? Like, did you check your tires?" Like, I wouldn't like interrogate him, but I would be like, "Hey, make sure your stuff's buckled up. I want you to be safe." Like, that's mostly where this is coming from, and I may not have articulated it well, or it may have seemed kind of clouded because I'm
No,
not
I get what you're
used to
saying.
doing
A lot of this
but it's
stuff is
that kind of stuff.
downstream. A lot of this stuff is downstream from good people, and that's why we're having this conversation. So culture is downstream from theology. We've heard this before. And man,
Yeah.
like this is what I'm saying is like what I'm getting from what you're saying is like you're really good intention. You're a layman. I'm a layman. I will say I'm a layman. Abe's a layman to some degree. Powder Dusty, we can even say that too. But to the degree we're looking at somebody who's at some echelon and we're making conversation and there's some judgment in there. And I get that. And that's what we're doing is we're just having a conversation. This is good, man. I think we should have more of these conversations.
I also think we should, and I'm also trying to not do anything where it would be like I wouldn't want to do it because Andrew's not here to defend himself. Like, I wouldn't want to be like, throwing stones or like,
I'm
really
glad
like
you
trying to
say
dig
that.
into him. Because
I'm
that's
glad you
like
can see
some of
that
the
perspective. Yeah.
that's some of the like worst like tell me you're a shitty person without telling me you're a shitty person, because you're gonna not only gossip, but you're gonna like spread like misinformation. Like, you're saying people are like, "Oh, I do all this roids and stuff, and if you want to be like Marte, you got to do it too, or you got to like not do what he does because what I think he does is right." And it's like people that are in dark corners, like they shouldn't be doing that because they grow out of shit like stinky mushrooms. And I'm not down with the, as he calls it, sewing circle ones, or the Ned Flanders, as you would say.
Oh, you didn't want to say Christians?
Well, I mean, I'll give you a quote. The greatest single cause of atheism in the world today are Christians who acknowledge Jesus with their lips, but deny him with their lifestyle.
Yeah.
That is what an unbelieving world simply finds unbelievable. That it, like, you have someone who's an atheist, like let's say Dusty, and he might be a little bit curious, or he might not be, and then he engages someone who's a Christian, and they do this like repugnant, disgusting, I would never do that. That's what bad people do, and it's really off-putting, and it does a ton of damage. And
you know what I do? I'd probably take Powder Dusty and I say, "Hey, let's go grab a drink, bro, and just talk BS about life." Like, you know what I'm saying? He'll smoke a cigarette. I'll smoke like a cigar. It's just bullshit about work. And then that's it, man. And then we'll get on here and like, I'll try to tear his head off in a debate. And then I'll be like, you know what? 30 more minutes until we're friends again. But I think this is what men do. We congregate. We're not as communal as women can be. I'll give us that. But at the same time, I think that there you go.
We have
at the same time, we can congregate and come together on one accord and just say, hey, you know what? Those Christian guys aren't that bad. And if I get him to say this, I made an inch more than somebody else would have done. And to me, I don't need to proselytize, get him to go down this avenue, but I just need to meet him where he's at in his level. And I think that's what Andrew Wilson does. He meets people where they're at. Now, granted, like, let's say I have warriors against Dusty's warriors, and he's general. Now, granted, from a distance, we're all wearing the same clothes. But what I'm not going to do is just throw a nuke in the trenches in this area and just kill them all because they all look the same. And this is what I'm talking about. So Andrew could be in the midst of trenches looking like he's a villain because they clip something out. And then they're like, oh, see what I'm talking about? But I think that that's a great seed that's planted to open up further discourse, to dive deeper in opportunity, because somebody could say Marte said this and it's clipped out of context. Now, this is the beautiful part about this. What I'll do is I'll take Abe's video and then just click the link and say, check this out. Let's see if this is true or not. The person, if they're curious or not, will click on the link and see the long format, and I'll leave it up to them. But it is not my job to go in there and manually try to break my back to change their mind. They'll do this on their own accord.
You'd have death by 1,000 cuts. You couldn't get anything else done.
Yeah.
Right.
And honestly,
I got to meet
like,
where they're at, and he does too, and you do too, and everybody else
can be Christian or not. And what you're talking, like what I was talking about with barbershop, is that whenever men are in times of like trouble or strife, they're not really supposed to go to their woman and seem like in a bad way. Like, there's certain times you can, but you're actually supposed to go to men that you respect, that are older, that haven't been in your type of shit, but they've been in something similar, and they can be like, hey, you need to fly right, or you need to do better, or have you thought about this, or man, you are massively messing up, you got to cut this out. And that's where that self-adjustment that you're talking about can happen from. And it's really
that's why I have an argument against having female friends. I have a strong argument against that. And that's
I
the
think
thing,
you
though.
can have sisters, but not necessarily friends. No.
That's different. Yeah, and I think you can have female friends as long as you have like a filter. And
Well,
what I mean
if
by
they're
filter,
if they're like a sister in Christ equivalent, like yeah, you can watch out for them and be friendly,
I
but
would
it's
say
still that you're
I would
generally a
even say
sister.
not even that. I'll even say why. Here's what you can have as far as a sister in Christ. Let's say you have a sister in Christ, and this can happen, right? But
Yeah.
even that provides a filter. And these filters I'm talking about is like, let's say Abe goes to work and he has a friend at work and she's a coworker. He's not going to call her his work wife. I already know that he's a good guy. But we can assume that he won't do that. But he says that that's my friend from work, right? Well, the reason why that can be his friend from work is because if he fools around or has relations, he loses the job. The job provides a filter. I'm friends with him, thus I'm friends with his wife. He provides that filter because if I fool around or make a pass, guess what? I'm 6 feet deep. So things like this. So I think
Yeah,
that
it
if
gives
you
you the
take away a
sandbox
filter,
with rules.
yeah. So if you take away the filter, I don't think it's genuine in my opinion, because if you have like, let's say I'm married to somebody, I can then tell somebody, well, can you explain to how a woman can provide a resource or give me anything that my wife can't give? Now you could say maybe she went to college and she has a bioengineering degree and she could teach me things, this woman. Well, here's the thing though. Now that prevents another adversarial position I put my wife in. Well, my wife says, no, this grass is better than this, but this bioengineering degree person with grass and flora and veggies and all this other stuff knows better. Well, hold on. Do I really want to pit her worldview against my wife's? No, even with the perspective, it doesn't look good from the optics
You
alone.
can do
So-
electrician work without safety gloves, being ungrounded without turning it off. You probably shouldn't do it though. And so, like
Yeah,
any
that's
benefit
why I
you
would
get,
leave it up to an expert and not do it myself.
yeah, there's always that risk that something is said, or your wife is now way bent out of shape because she's like realistically like, why are you doing this? It's like you're playing with fire in the house, and the house might burn down. Like, why are you doing this? Why are you? And then she's getting all kinds of crazy about it. But you're like, oh, I need to talk to this biologist woman. But it's like you're still making a fire in your living room, and you probably shouldn't do it.
Yeah,
Unless
that's why we're
there's
talking about
those-
optics. Optics
Yeah,
are
unless-
extremely important. So, like, let's say I'll give you another example. Like, let's say Powder Dusty is somewhere else, and I need to go get cash, and I'm like, bro, I know our wives are at home. Let's say we're married. Our wives are at home, and I got to go get this furniture because of OfferUp. It's a great modern invention, social media, right? And I go get this furniture, and I'm like, oh, there's no ATM. They need cash because they don't have card. And then I'm like, oh, a strip club. Oh, they must have an ATM. And I walk right in there, and then somebody that knows Powder Dusty is like, bro, you'll never. Oh, is Powder Dusty? Oh, you're his wife. Okay, hey, your boy Marte just walked into a strip club.
Yeah,
And think about the optics of this. So
Yeah.
that's a good example. So it's like if you're with another woman outside of your home, another woman. So we also have to deal with this too. So because of Me Too movement, all this other stuff. So back to the Andrew Wilson thing, optics
I
are
wouldn't
extremely
look at you any
important.
sort of
I'll
way at
grant
all.
you that. What's that?
Yeah.
I wouldn't look at you at any sort of way at all. Honestly, I'd judge you guys more for the pearl clutching and tisking you're doing right now than I would for you walking into a strip club. I'm not gonna lie, y'all sound like prude weirdos that have a morality contest. You can you're polishing your halo. This is like a circle jerk of halo polishing, and I respect none of it.
Well,
You don't
I
have
don't
to
even
respect
necessarily
it.
know that we're trying to have
Well,
a virtue offer.
I
Like,
guess the
who's
question
better?
would be, would you respect the fact that we believe it and we feel conviction towards it?
Let me back it up. I'm not saying I don't respect any of you. I don't respect this activity that's happening right now. What was the
Powder
question again?
Dusty's roasting us right now. That's what he's doing. Let's be real.
Well,
I would
if you
expect
think
nothing
about
less.
it's
Right.
like representative of that. Like, you are like in a sports team and you're like a big fan of it, and then somebody else that's a sports team
I
goes
understand
to-
representation. I understand
Yeah.
that perfectly well. What I'm saying is, you guys are discussing this as if bad behavior is the only thing that's off-putting. What I'm telling you is what I'm seeing is hubris and judgmental attitudes, and that is also off-putting.
So
That's
I would say partially I can understand where you're coming from, but if we feel that this is the standard we should be hold to or holding ourselves to, because of what we believe, then it would be best for us to hold ourselves to that standard.
Well,
You may
it's
not
also-
agree with it.
Told
That's
yourself
cool.
to the standard. Told yourself to-
any political standpoint of I don't like what this politician is doing, or I don't like that Democratic policy, or I hate that Republicans do this, or any kind of that sort of stuff. You can have those internal bickering, and like what they're doing and the way that they go about that can actually be worse than the thing that they're arguing about. Like I can also understand that in a non-religious sense too.
Yeah, so what's happening is like I'm going up to Octavius, shaking his hand and wrapping my arm around him. He's in the background saying "gay."
Basically, yeah.
I'm gonna tell you, like that's what you're doing, bro. It's like-
And there is like I'm really glad that Andrew Wilson is doing what he's doing, and I'm glad that he's getting all the growth, and I think it's awesome. And I do know that honestly, like the best thing that you can use to like combat like degeneracy a lot of times has to be like fashioned out of stuff that's degenerate that you kind of weirdly sanctify and hope for the best, but they're vulnerable to it because it's a den of vipers and they will consume themselves and attack themselves and they'll stomp people out of their herd, and it's very groupthink about it, and you have to do all of these things. And using degenerate means to combat them, especially when they're coming at you, like that's the best way to like make them look stupid amongst their cohorts, but that tends to make them look more likely at Andrew Wilson, and the more they're exposed to it, the more it will actually permeate, and they might have an original thought that's not just the echo chamber. Like I understand
oh
why
snap!
he
You sound like less HR now. How did that happen? This is miraculous.
That's
it's
a
just
bridge.
something-
I think a bridge was built.
Man,
Yeah.
this took a high in hell water. Like I don't know, it's crazy. But anyways,
Well, it's things that I've thought, but it's not necessarily stuff I want to talk about if I'm trying to be critical. And once the criticisms are kind of been aired and the wound has sort of been like, cleansed or whatever, then it's like, hey, there are all these other things that are behind it.
Are you saying you're wounded? You had emotional trauma that you wanted to go ahead and dump on us? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I hurt my toe.
You're doing that bit right now.
My toe fell off. I need a truck.
Fell off.
Go
You
off,
bumped your
Queen.
I
toe,
need a
fell
tow truck.
off.
Go off, Queen. go get it, girl.
Yeah.
Powder Dusty's having none of this.
Because I mean, and as an olive branch to Dusty, like, because he's
Flo's like, I wasn't even listening. I don't know what you're
Like-
talking about.
I don't
I'm uploading a short.
even if I had like $500,000 or $1 million and people that knew how to do YouTube and like sponsorships and like paying people to watch my content and like trying to mimic other people's talking points, like I guarantee you that unless there's some miracle or it's meant to happen, I would come nowhere near close to what Andrew was doing a year ago or 2 years or at the beginning of his thing. I probably would fail and shit myself and then be a mockery if I actually tried to do that. And I'm not trying to say that I'm better than him or know more than him. It's just,
Since Powder Dusty was talking about hubris earlier, I'm about to make a statement. Now you could say it's hubris. I think Andrew Wilson right now is the Michael Jordan of debate right now. There. Now
Not
you can make
hubris. That's not hubris. You're just a groupie.
well, if you
How is
think
that not
about it,
accurate?
no, there's
How is that not accurate
terminology-
though?
There's terminology that's permeating the news. There's things that people are talking about. Like there was the moment where Crowder actually had him on to like talk about like what are the duties of women, and there's his like argumentation about force, and that there's things in conversations
The ripple
that
effect.
have nothing to do with debate that are linked back to it being observed. Like
Yes.
what it did for a long time is it got people talking about in a big way the question of why is dating fucked up. And so Andrew Wilson is having those sorts of effects on it, which is awesome. And he's probably, I would hope, going to continue to grow and grow and grow and grow and grow. And I really do wish him all the best. And I don't want there to be something that, someone comes out of the dark and stabs him in the back and he's like, oh, but this happened. And then there's the fall from grace. Because it's the representation of him being that big of a trophy that someone just sacked.
So I think this is coming from a good place, but I'm going to go ahead and build this bridge back with Dusty and say it's still HR that I'm talking to. So
Say what?
still uploading, I see. Okay.
Oh no, it's good. It's good.
Good job on that, bro. Okay.
I just listened to him once through to make
This
sure that the
guy.
audio came through right and everything. You know.
So, Marte, do you have your
Sure,
own
man.
business out of curiosity?
Do I what?
Do you have your own business?
I work in a certain industry right now, and I also I work 2 jobs, man. I'm just a regular layman, but I'm trying to get my start.
If you
doing
were to get to where you have 50 to 100 employees, do you think that you would deploy an HR department?
Of course.
Okay.
Legalities, I want to protect myself, but the employees, I need them to believe that, oh, this isn't for my protection. You see what I'm getting at?
Yeah. Look at my
Right.
left hand, but don't pay attention to the right.
Exactly. I need to protect myself at all times. Of course, I'm going to bring a ref back there in the alley so that way I don't get, screwed over at some point.
So
That's
I'm
what's gonna
glad that you are aware that HR sometimes can be good.
I've said that before, actually, to you in this discussion previously. I've said they can be good, but that's the thing, though, is the whole time. I mean, you're going to be betting against the house.
And I also,
HR is forever
Inevitably,
going to be on
yeah.
my side, no matter what.
right. And I also think that your concern is admirable. It's coming from a good place. Like, you're trying to make sure that something that you see as good and making strides for good is not falling, is not going to. Right.
Yeah,
Did he just freeze?
Yeah,
he froze.
Or he cut out? Or
I did.
He was
internet
like, how this picture is behind him? He was
Yeah.
like this. He was mirroring the picture exactly. Very statuesque. Get it, Abe. There you go.
No, I'm saying I think it's admirable that your concern is coming from a place where you're trying to make sure that the thing you think is doing good doesn't collapse or fall in on itself. So I think it was coming from the right place. I just think that you don't possibly have insight into it enough to see some of the things that you're. Yeah.
It's also that I hope, as this is recorded and other people will get exposed to it, and it might make some rounds, not that I'm aiming for that, but if that's a side effect, that people who do have criticisms, that they might feel okay, that's not exactly what I was thinking, but it's similar enough to try to understand that there's reasons he does what he does, and if it does go too far, that he probably didn't mean to, and that he, just for the egg on your face aspect, it would make sense for him to pivot or to try and minimize the occurrence of that, unless it's drastic and he's doing it for a reason, and just having these things in mind. Because sometimes just having people feel like they're heard, and that it's hey, what you're saying is a thing. I get it. I'm the shepherd. You're the sheep. You need to calm down. I get it. You think there's a wolf, but let's all stay together as a flock and graze, and it'll be fine. And then we'll go get water, and then I'll put you to bed. And there are some aspects of large groups of people that have those stuff, and a situation where something like that can help alleviate the tension in some way for at least a few people, I think that would be a net positive.
Well, I think that's my time. I'm going to get going because I got to wake up in 3 hours, 3.5.
Yeah.
And
I
I saw you on here, and I jumped on and I heard Andrew Wilson's name, and I was like, oh, this sounds interesting. And some of the conversation, I was like, oh, hold on, let me push back a little bit. And all right, let me fire up the laptop, and that's why I'm here. So.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate the conversation. It was really nice to do.
Yeah, well, it's good to meet all of you here. I know.
Marte, snag up that link backstage before you go.
This guy clipped the shit out of me. I guarantee. I bet you $100. This motherfucker. All right, you started some shit that I'm gonna have to finish myself. All right, let's do it. This guy. All right, man.
Well, you Christians were infighting us over here doing the devil's work and clipping you up.
This guy.
Nice.
This is a good opportunity for you to bounce too. I've been here way longer than I expected to, but it's been interesting. Thanks for having me up, Abe. Good talk. Salute to the chat and audience panelists.
Yep.
Have a good night.
It's good talking with you.
I'm gonna go ahead and look at this clip, and I'm gonna push mute because I don't know what the hell this guy's got. Knowing it's him, I don't want to TOS your channel, so I'm gonna push mute. So
yeah. So do you mind me asking you something, Abe?
Sure.
How do you feel about facilitating something like that? Was it good? Was it bad? What are your thoughts?
I think this was great.
Awesome.
I think that I mean, this is kind of what my channel has been and why I set my channel up the way that I did, is there's a ton of debate going on all over the place all the time. And I wanted a place where conversations that need to be had can be had, and where it's not so adversarial that people are screaming in each other's face. Now that does happen from time to time, but I think I think it's important for us to be able to build bridges, whether it's between Orthodox and Protestants, or to help non-Christians understand where we're coming from. I think that's super important, and I don't see it enough.
Well, I have an answer to that, but before I get into that, it is important because there are the soapbox on the village square in the park where people just talk and talk and talk and talk. And then there's the street corners and bars where people argue and blood sports, but there's also the dining room table where you're able to break bread, where you're able to have conversations, where you don't lose your shit, where you're not exploding and you're not like calling people a bad thing or other stuff. And you're able to spend time having the food and the conversation. And maybe you don't get very far, but you understand the criticisms or concerns the other person had better, and you come away from it more suited to be able to like navigate that in a way that has better outcomes. And ideally the other person does too.
I
Or
agree.
maybe there was some ignorance that was solved, or they had a genuine like, hey, I think your politician sucks, and why do you think that? And they mentioned something that's bad and you never thought about it.
Right. And sometimes you need to expose the chinks in the armor to have them understand where their weakness lies, or where they're not seeing reality.
Yeah.
And I
And
think
having room for the lectures, the TED Talk, soapbox stuff, but also the blood sports and like fisticuffs, the two people that are boxing without, gloves on, but also the dining room conversation, like what you had here. Like those are all equally critical aspects that if you just have conversations, then you're not really going to be able to do that much. But if you don't like instigate and have blood for the crowd, then you won't be able to do other things. And if you don't kind of like lecture and have like people that are talking and other sorts of stuff, then it all kind of needs to come together all at once. And it's an important facet of it.
So
I agree.
I'm not to interrupt, but I'm going to get out of here. It's been nice, gentlemen. Octavius, pleasure to meet you.
Hey, you
Powder
as well.
Dusty. Yeah. So the clip was when he caught me saying Miss Arizona, which I meant Mr. This bastard is going to like get backs are fair in my opinion, and I'm better at this than him, I assure you. So you guys will wait, and I'll tag all you guys in this when this happens.
Okay.
Right on.
Good luck, Powder Dusty. Clip that.
Thank you for coming, dude. I appreciate it.
Yeah, sure, man. Anytime, man. I don't mind. Hopefully, I didn't bore you guys to death with my.
I think rhetoric. It was freaking awesome. It was a good conversation, and I think it needed to happen too. So,
well, something I will admit, as you're someone who's becoming Orthodox and getting into you're not there yet, but you're on the road of it. Like that probably was one of the better interactions with an ortho, because there's a lot of like, I'm a dirty prot, and the people that look down on me and like other stuff where they make these assumptions. It's not all of them. It just, I happen to have the misfortune of running into them. And that you can talk about things, but when you get into certain issues with disagreement, sometimes more often than not, the knives come out. And I'm really glad that we were able to have that. Not that I want to convert or anything, but it makes me more like comfortable with the idea of it existing, and that maybe it's not like bad or less than good. It's just a different way of doing it.
I can't,
the exposure I've had.
I can't make you convert, and nor do I want to be here to convert. I don't think that's my job or my position, although we're supposed to quote unquote spread the gospel. I think that the better way that I can go ahead and just relay this to you is by clearing up the position and maybe some of the misunderstandings that I have in my. So what I did was, when we had this conversation, you went to good or bad. You automatically went to that, even though I never said the words good or bad, nor was I offended by that. Maybe like, let's say you did, this was provocation that stemmed from previous interactions with Orthodox people, right? Well, for me, I just want you to understand that when I think about these things, that's why I went to like, oh, things are fractioned off. I referred to like the history, things like this. I took emotion out of this whole argument. And I think that when men get together, the best way that you can handle discussion is take emotion and just point to things that are more clear and take our, like that was me taking myself out of the picture and saying, here, this is what I mean. I'm going to build this construct of an idea of, hey, when we go back to the source, maybe it's a little bit more fraction and people's interpretation. That's the only distinction I can have. I could say less or more, but the worst thing I could say is, well, bad or good, because what that's doing is creating a schism between you and me. It's not good or bad. The person that has to determine bad or good would be Abe Dinkus upon himself, or you and my interaction with you and me. Good or bad, I'm not here for good or bad. I'm just here for just banter with people. If we do have a debate,
thing that I do genuinely appreciate is that you did treat me with good faith, and I hope that you can understand from talking with me for a few hours by now that I'm. There's been a few people I've told that I'm one of the more good faith people on the internet that you'll encounter. Like that, if I say something and it seems a way, like me asking you, what do you mean by bad? It's not that, because I was trying to give you an opportunity to clarify that I might be wrong and that you might not be saying this. And like, but early on with asking Andrew, with asking about definitions, that sometimes it's really important to do that. And I'm glad that we were able to have that kind of stuff going on.
I think Marte is often the same way. He tries to be honest, straightforward, and good faith in his presentation as well, and I think that's really helpful.
You mean this presentation right now, because Powder Dusty's about to get cooked. That's what's going to happen. So he's going to be fried to a crisp.
By any chance, happen to know what a salvationist actually is?
So I made an assumption in my head of what that may be. I would think I just automatically went to evangelist. That's where my head went.
Okay, so have you ever heard of a little organization that happens to be called the Salvation Army?
Yes, I've heard of them.
It's a worldwide church that's in 134 countries. They have like youth camps all over the place. They do outreach. They have a worldwide campaign that is like anti-trafficking for like bad things with that they do a lot of good. Anytime, like when 9/11 happened, there were 40,000 Corps officers, members of the church, and volunteers that showed up for 6 months at Ground Zero. That when Katrina, like anytime there's a disaster, they have canteen trucks that are like mobile taco trucks. They'll show up and they'll feed 400 people. They'll give people diapers for free. They do a lot of that, like, without good works, it's difficult to really say that you're Christian, because you're supposed to be doing good works. And that's kind of what a lot of it, not that you can't be a Christian if you don't do works, but you're supposed to go out and actually try and help people. And when people castigate Protestants, for me, it's not offensive, but it's like not hurtful, but it's
going to turn you away.
Yeah, because they don't understand that, like, the level that, like, there are people who genuinely, like, I remember when I was in high school and I was volunteering 1,400 hours my senior year, and there was about 460 families that, due to angel trees and the compassion and kindness of others, that like 480 some families got toys under the tree and a Christmas dinner. And there was something in that room that was moving. It was a very like spiritual thing to have people that were practically sobbing in thanks and telling them that it's like, it's what we were called to do. We're trying to help everyone. And it's like, when people like look down on that as a prot from reasons, which is part of why I've had trouble with orthos, is like, it's kind of like throwing that in the mud. And there are good things that Protestants did. Like, as an example, didn't they found America? That's pretty good, right?
Yeah. I have no qualms against that. One thing I'll say is, like, I can hear why you use that for an example, as far as when we were referencing, you referenced earlier, people down the trenches feeding people. Like, I see where you get this from. I have no qualms against that. I have no refutation against that, because here's the thing. I could be talking to a secularist or a Satanist or somebody else right now, but instead I'm talking to somebody that does believe in Christ. Whether or not we can get into semantics, whether or not I could say it's the right Christ or not, or whatever, like, that's not what I'm here for. I just think that I think that grammar should be introduced into society with this 8th grade level super chat. So anyways, no knock against them, but I think that maybe typo or something. Sorry, I have OCD when it comes to like grammar. I'm such an ass.
I get you.
Or I don't.
So, do you think politicians can be good Christians? I think that if you stick
I think
to like what a Christian should be and what they're called to, and you're in a position to be able to do more as a politician, sure. But it's like if you're a married man, because I'm going to relate this to myself because that's the only thing I can do. But if you're a married man and you're in a situation where you could cheat or you're tempted to, you're kind of called to avoid women of ill repute because their houses are death. But when you're in those positions like Andrew Wilson or a politician, the temptations are much more present. And as a Christian, like it's the reason it says that it takes two of you and Christ will be there and you can have church. That like there's the fellowship of others and the bedrock of faith of people that are pulling for you, that are keeping you in check. And that if you're going to be in that position, you need to be humble about it and also constantly seeking not the approval of others, but like talking with whoever your spiritual leader is, with, like hearing what other people are talking about and like trying to do more Bible study than you should be and other kinds of things to try and grow in your faith as a leader that's like in the world but not of it.
Well,
It's a much more dangerous road to walk, but it can
that's
be
also
drawn.
an appeal to marriage. Would it be if there are more than two? Because there has to be two. So that's what I'm saying is I think that that's a great appeal to that too. So we can look at things and say, okay, this can also apply to that. We can say, look at the application that this could be used for. But yeah, that's my time. I'm going to see what's up. Abe, I'll talk to you later.
Brother. Yeah.
Alrighty.
Space Tweaker, probably.
Yeah, have a great night.
Sleep. Yeah. You guys take care. See you soon.
By the way, Abe, the way I've often thought of it is where there are two, we are one in Christ.
I think that's a good way to look at it.
Yeah.
I appreciate the time you spent here tonight, Octavius.
Well, I appreciate you doing the things.
Man, see, I said earlier we could have the talk, and I didn't talk nearly as much, but I think that went pretty damn well.
I do too. I think it was a good thing. I was less enthusiastic about some of the, oh, you're just doing this or you're doing that, kind of to just like hand wave it like, oh, quit bugging me, fly. You're making me mad. Like, I understand why people do that. But.
Right. I think there's this, it's just like you said before, there's a certain defense mechanism, right? That's going to be alerted. And that once that's alerted, you've got to say, you have to recognize it first. And I think, I think that like Emmett was taking it that way because he's very passionate about this subject specifically in a different way. And I think that Marte is more honed and he understands why that's happening. And he's not going to jump straight to the offense part, which is why I was glad that it was Marte who jumped in. Actually,
his self-calibration is that it's not that you catch more flies with honey than vinegar, but it's like when you are a big, strong man, you have to be careful because you can break people.
Mm-hmm.
That like if you were to get in an altercation, it better be life or death because you got lethal hands. And
so it's that whole thing of Superman has to treat the world like it's cardboard. Right?
Yeah, and that's a very good point. With when you are in those positions, it's almost sometimes like you have to treat them like they're a child, and that you don't necessarily want to go right to spanking the baby with an axe. You want to like have the compassion that they're ignorant, and what is it in them that's taken root that's causing them to be doing this, that's leading to the cognitive dissonance and bad behavior or criticisms or whatever the problem is. And if you can identify it, oh, it's this kind of thing, it grows in this type of biome, there's this amount of moisture, what's it weak to, how can I trim it, what can I do and not get like the sap to get on me and start burning me, like how can I actually get in there and at least move the rocks away so that it falls over and might die, or that we can come back and I can keep trying to hack at the briars and get into Aurora Sleeping Beauty's castle because I have to get through all the bramblewood thicket. And so what he does, I got a lot of respect for him because of what he did and how he went about it, because that's what a leader should do.
So this is something
with Christian morals,
right? This is something that I've realized recently, especially, is that there is a representative force on the internet of ortho bros that are overzealous to the point of just fighting it and calling you out for being the wrong kind of Christian and all these other things. But there's a different thing completely when you look at the actual Orthodox Church and the people in it. And it's that whole, the internet culture is way different than reality. And
perpetually online. Yeah, I get it.
right. And so what we're seeing as a representation of orthodoxy at times on the internet is this weird toxic version of it, and it's not the actual Orthodox Church. And so the more that I interface with some of the people that are not the perpetual people that are in the Orthodox Church, I realize that it's not necessarily the way that the online community is acting.
Yeah. Well, they do that because they A, can, and B, because of meme theory. That it's kind of a meme that like, oh, we're the best, or we're the original, that you're all heathens and we're going to make fun of you, and like the faux pas at your expense and all that stuff.
Yep. And it's just like, we're both vets, right?
Yeah.
So it's the same thing as like, I'm a Marine, and so I'm better than the others.
In the Army.
Right.
But you still need crayons.
And always do that, right? Always that, oh, we're better. No, we're better. Oh, no, we're the better ones. And it's the same idea. Especially in the youth, you see it a lot from a younger crowd of the Orthodox guys, where they're just very overzealous, and
it's an overcorrection,
right?
Because they were so empty before, and now they're filled up that they want to. And something Andrew, to his credit again, does is he's like, "Hey, if you're young in your faith, shut up. You're not in a position to be doing that. Sit down. You're making me look bad." And like there's those aspects to it where the very young are doing that kind of stuff. And it, like, you're a Marine and I'm in the Army, and me, like, the next thing out of my mouth is, how do those crayons taste? Like, you know that it's like in good fun.
Yeah, we're playing.
And you give me crap, like all the different, like, hey, we always got to come rescue you. And it's like, okay, dude, go eat your crayons. But like, there's, with the younger that you're talking about, there's more vitriol and like, you are worse than my enemy because at least my enemy knows that he's my enemy.
Right.
And you represent everything that I hate about who I used to be, the way the world is, and it's your fault.
And think about it. Think about it too from like the Protestant side. As you come into Christianity, either as a Protestant, you either come into it or you're raised in it. And there are certain points where your zealousness to go out and tell everybody.
Yeah, to proselytize.
And it's so amazing, and you have to go do this, and you're filled with that fire. It's that same idea. It's that same idea, but the teachings are a little different, and how you go about it is different. And so that same zealousness that you would have as a teen or an early 20s Christian is the same thing for them, but it manifests differently because of the way that the church functions.
That's true, but there are also the makeup of the person. Like,
absolutely.
Who, like, not to cite movies, but I've seen people who are new Christians, and they'll like go out of their way to attack someone that's gay. Or they'll say that, hey, you're vaping, or that they'll this. It's different words, but they do the same thing that the orthos.
Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely.
But then you'll see others that are more like myself, who like, I would rather move in the quiet desperation of it, trying to reach out but ever unable to. However, when the fire comes and you're panicking but I'm not, you will crave my secret. You will attack me and say, why didn't you tell me this greater truth? But I will be perfectly positioned to save you, or at least be, help you up out of the pit, or do what little I can to prepare the ground so that someone else can do it in the future. That for me,
so that the seed can take hold.
Yeah, the witnessing is so much more powerful than other things, and it's like when Christians do that, like I'm one of the first people to start barking at them, like, hey, it's not okay to do that. You need to stop.
Right. Well, that's one of the things I've tried to promote, like here, is like, we don't need to attack everybody. That's not actually effective in any way.
It's not.
You just don't. If you seek to understand and you give grace and you give even just the littlest bit of understanding to people, you will have so much better standing to say anything and have it come across as sincere than you will criticizing, attacking, or telling people that they're wrong constantly.
But the conflation that the orthos do that never-endingly like burns my biscuits is that they conflate that with being weak or meek or pathetic or pushover, when Christians are called to like fight the wolf at the gate. That they're
Right.
called to like, there's a reason they have like a sling and a knife and the crook, because they go after that one sheep and it's surrounded by wolves. We're having wolf stew for the next 2 weeks. Like nobody
Right.
says to lay down and let it eat you and then eat your flock.
That's
Like
true.
that there's this misnomer that like that Jesus was like, you know, a weak person, and so we should strive to also be weak, and that
Right.
you
Well,
have
that's
to like swagger and
right.
posture and overcorrect like a blowfish
It's the
to try and
conflation, right?
yeah,
They conflate meek with weak, and meek means that you have a sword and you know when to draw it. It doesn't mean that you don't have any strength. You don't
yeah,
have any action. The meekness is a man who knows he can slay that wolf and chooses when his sword is drawn. It's not. It's such a weird conflation that's happened with the meek.
yeah. Well, there's the idea of that they might have seen their father emasculated by their mother, or that they haven't gotten any respect, or they tried to be a nice guy and that girl like stomped on their heart, or that they see it where it's intrinsically tied with masculinity because the greater truth of Christ, there's nothing more masculine. And someone was trying to tell me like, oh, he does all this masculine swagger stuff, and I'm thinking to myself like, compared to Christ, everyone fails.
Yeah.
But it's like there are ways to do it where you go about it a different way, and advocating for considering that I don't necessarily see as a bad thing. But it's important to be like, where you're not disparaging, you're not trying to like tear them down, or you're not trying to like talk about them behind their back. It's just like we're encouraged to pray for our leaders and presidents and stuff, and like people that have authority over us, that we try to intercede with Christ and the Lord and the Holy Spirit on their behalf so that he can more appropriately move through them, so his will is done, kind of thing. And you know, it's when you get into conversations adjacent to that, and you can sometimes come off a certain way, which I understand why they're like, oh, you're just doing HR speak as a, you know, it's kind of a meme to score points and achieve victory. And I'm like, yeah, it's kind of disingenuous, but I get it.
Kind of. I mean, because I could see where, okay, so if your church structure is a certain way,
Yeah.
and your concerns are coming across in a way that says, the way we do things is very specific. We know the ways that we're doing it, and we know the reasons why we're doing it. And you're coming here and giving us an emotional plea, or at least what seems like an emotional plea, then that just comes across as HR to them in a legitimate way. I don't think that
Yeah.
that becomes disingenuous, but I think it feels super disingenuous to anybody outside of that structure. And so that's why I jumped in a few times to try and to smooth it, not like to like be milk toast or anything, but to say,
Yeah.
look, this is a communication error. It has nothing to do with him being HR or you being wrong. It literally is a communication error because of the structures of our belief systems.
And the irony of it is that them saying I'm doing HR and tone policing is in fact due to my perceived tone, them doing the exact same thing back to me. And it's like, why are you cutting off your own nose to spite your face?
I can understand that, yeah.
Because people, they make assumptions and they're like, oh, this must be what you mean. And I've had to tell some people recently, as I'm getting used to this, that they have something in their throat that they have to get across that's more important than actually the engagement, the conversation.
Right.
It's more, they want it to be adversarial, but it's like, you know, I'm in a position where I could attack you, but I'm intentionally trying to not draw a weapon or not escalate it to that point and keep it at the conversation level. And they're not quite used to that. They're more of like butting heads and owning you and winning and blood sports and so, which is fine. But it's
Right.
like, that's not the most effective way to communicate is always with reason. And
Well,
reason never devolves.
That, and they're also not used to the way that you come across, right? Because in this space for a long time, it's been mostly either just straight out, this is this, or it's been debating or things like that. and
Yeah.
you come in with a cool head and are trying to probe so that you understand, and you're trying to help them understand what your message is, and they're so not used to that, they're looking for the attack that may be coming or the trap that you're setting for them.
Yeah.
When in reality, that's not what you're doing at all. But it will come across that way because they're so used to people doing that in a snaky way, you know?
Oh, I completely. They're trying to like slither on their bellies to get up and slit your throat, or they're like
Right.
got to be a sycophant to pull the Grimer Wormwood or Wormtog that like poison the King of Rohan. That
Right.
like, hey, I need to keep you away. That you're bad news. That you're
Right.
just you're gonna do someone that's gonna damage stuff, or
Right.
Right.
So I think that, but I mean, that's what I said. Like when I first met you on EODs and you were talking and I was in the call with you, I was trying to decide where you were coming from, because I did that at first too. I was like, okay, is this a sneaky thing? Is what's going on here? Because I come across quite a few leftists that try to do the same kind of thing, like probing, and then bam, 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 hit you with all these things. And so,
Yeah.
but I'm not going to jump the gun and lay into somebody or take them as bad faith right off the bat. So the more that I listened and kind of talked to you a little bit, and then the next time I saw you on there, I realized that you're coming at it fairly earnest and you're just seeking to understand and get across your ideas in a way that doesn't, like you said, with the optics, that doesn't come across as setting off the immune system immediately.
Yeah. It's more palatable.
It is. I would say for me, because we're all tangential to like the debate spaces, right? Like Verbal Combat and Sarah's Tomato channel, and
It's a kissing cousin.
And so what happens is most of the people in these spaces, and it's funny that I plopped here because I'm like not doing that. I mean, I am. I go and I debate on those channels, but that's not my natural temperament. I don't think. I'm not an argumentative person by nature. I'm just more of a logical, philosophical type person by nature. It's funny that I plopped here, and it seems like it was super needed, actually, because people are coming in and being like, well, man, I like the debate space, but it's too much. It's too much sometimes. We need a space where we can just talk things out, not argue everything. And it's like, well, that's perfect then. Come talk about it.
You need the apple tree that's on top of a hill, and there's something about like just sitting on your ass and leaning against the tree and just exhaling and watching the clouds and the breeze blows, and maybe you feel the presence of the Holy Spirit. Maybe it's just a great day and you end up taking a nap. Whatever your perspective, it's still, there's something that's like grounding. I hate that this word has been co-opted, but healing, but also invigorating to get where you're okay. I'm going to go trudge back down the hill and get right back into the mix of things. That we need the apple tree.
It's peace.
Yeah,
it's peace. When you can get that sense of peace, even for a brief respite, you gain your strength back. You gain more perspective on what's going on, and you feel more energized to go back into the world that you've been toiling in, I think.
Yeah. Because me, I kind of see myself as, instead of a fisher, I'm more of a noodler. That I'll put my whole arm in there and I'll let them bite down and then I'll pull them out, and I don't try to cook them, but I'm like, there was an oil spill. You're covered in oil. I have to scrub you down. I'll be as gentle as I can. And you can try to chew on my arm all you want, but I'm going to eventually let you go and then hope that maybe things are better for you.
And that's the other thing, like I've noticed with you transition quite well between amicable, chill, seeking to understand, to firm and pointed. I've seen the difference in depending on what we're talking about, or what you're talking with someone else about, and you're not afraid to just go to firmly what you stand on or what you believe, but you're not going to enforce it right off the bat or anything like that. And I think that it's good faith, and then it also comes across as earnest, I would say. I guess just you're not here to do anything besides say, hey, I think maybe this is a good idea, and here's why I think it's a good idea.
Well, I
and you're
appreciate
willing
you
to talk it out.
because I may very well be wrong, but then again, all the geniuses around the chalkboard stumped for 10 years, and I'm the reject that failed out of high school. That's like the janitor. Have you thought about this one thing? And they all laugh at me, but then this one guy's like, "Oh crap, we never thought of that." And then all of a sudden, like we can go into space, or they figure out something way to get tenure. And I'm
Right.
just the idiot that I'm right sometimes.
Right. Well, that's all of us, right? Sometimes we have a moment of genius.
Yeah.
We might not even know it's genius, but we might have that moment. So
Well, I mean, Christ came for the broken, and he didn't come in like robes of gold with choirs of angels hoisting him on high. It was that he was a very humble person. His clothes were like road worn, but like well maintained. He ate simple foods and he talked in simple terms, and he would sometimes use slurs and swear so people could relate to him that weren't saved, even though he
well, he met people where they were.
yeah, but the people that quote were quote saved, even though they're not, like the established religious types, they were the ones that actually ended up crucifying him.
True.
And in that sense, that in it, not that I see Andrew as Christ, but it's like I don't want him to get crucified. That would be
Right.
actually really bad.
Well, no,
So,
that's always the risk, right? Whenever there's a following, there's always the risk that your following turns on you. There is.
inevitably, because
So
you're kind of like the group is on the edge of a cliff, and you're on a board, and it's like a lever that the more popular you get, the further the board grows, and if the
Right.
crowd moves away, you just tumble into the crevasse.
right. That's a pretty good picture to paint, because it is. The base that you have grown is the support that which holds you up. And without it, yep.
So it's one of those damned if you do, damned if you don't. But it's like if you do have to go and do battle with the devil, so to speak, you got to make sure with I don't remember it specifically, and I don't want to bastardize it, but the whole armor of God and like helmet of this and sword of faith, like each piece of armor, and that you make sure that there's no, like you're saying, is this person being sneaky? Are they an ooze that's trying to like sneak in and stab me in my back? There's a lot of that kind of stuff that you have to be wary of, and it's important to, like, there's a reason that back in the day soldiers would sharpen their swords every day, and they would like keep getting like rust or like chips in them, that they would like fix their saddles, that they would like prepare themselves, and they would drill and drill and drill and drill so that when it mattered, it was all reflex and they could think about other things while in the business of combat.
Same thing that we do in the Marine Corps, over and over and over and over and over, till it's second nature. You don't even think, you just do. Yep.
Yeah.
All right, Octavius, I think I have to crash so I don't face down on this laptop.
Well, I wanted to thank you for doing the hangout stuff and the good conversation. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you're always welcome back. I don't have a really good schedule set up yet, but I'm going to try to do it as much as I can. So
awesome. Well, I wish you the best with it.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, I'll head out and let you do your thing.
Yes, sir. Have a good night.
You as well.
Okay. Does anybody know who is on currently? Looks like Jess is on. Yep. As far as anybody I know, Jess is the only one who's on. So if you guys want to get a raid over to Jess, you could do that. I am going to lay down for a little bit because it's probably a good idea. Thank you, Gorilla Biscuits. Thank you, Ashton. Thank you, Charles Darwin. Thank you to everybody who hung out. Thank you, Auntie. I appreciate you guys. Thank you for coming in. Thank you for the support. I'll try to post it around the next time I'm going to be on. You guys try to have a good night. God bless all of you. Thank you for being here for me. And good night.
boots, dusty coats torn and frayed. 6 feet under, but he ain't gonna stay. Stomping the ground like a thunderous quake. On his stage, back for America's sake. He's carving truth with a fiery hand, splitting lies like he split the land. Rails to freedom, the hammer still pounds. Resurrected, Abe Lincoln shakes the ground. Bloodstained history sees it all, from the courthouse steps to the Capitol halls. A phantom voice with a justice demand. He's here to lead, but not to hold hand. He's carving truth with a fiery hand, splitting lies like he split the land. Rails to freedom, the hammer still pounds. Resurrected, Abe Lincoln shakes the ground.